especially Goodluck Jonathan's administration, had dared to even talk about the removal of fuel subsidy. We remember in this country what took place. For so long, the big guys were in Lagos streets and the rest of the big cities protesting against.
Was one of them.
Yes, the present president led the cause of the protest against fuel subsidy. So I had imagined, or I had hoped, that between 2013 or thereabout, when Goodluck dared to 2012, when Goodluck dared to remove the fuel subsidy, and 2023 when he became the president, that he would have gotten his acts correct to ensure that this cabal that is now mentioning as a frightening child, say there is a cabal. And then I question my patriotism to this country, that if a president seemingly sounds frightening, that there's a little cabal more stronger perhaps than the government of the day to be dealt with, then something is in the offing that we do not know, or that we do not seek to know. So it was not better for him to make that statement, removing fuel subsidy, without making plans for it. First he goofed. They remove subsidy and then talk about giving us, oh, not me. I think by the standard of qualification, I couldn't have been in the list of those that will be the beneficiaries of the 8,000 naira. So, and I asked myself, immediately the fuel subsidy was removed, that same evening, fuel started selling for 540 naira. Some filling stations sold at 600. I got to one of the filling stations on Ring Road 3, the new Ring Road, and I saw 620. I drove home thinking that it's just the Uyo pattern of,
responding to shock.
So the next morning I needed to get gasoline for my car, and I realized that the new price is standard 600, 620. Now within a twilight, so they've reduced it, and then again it came up to where they wanted to. The question that we've been asking is, assuming they're not conceding that indeed fuel subsidy was so much, had been taking so much from us, was it up to 340 naira per litre that the federal government was subsidizing? Or let us even tilt back. Early this year, in January, if I'm correct, we were buying fuel at about 179 naira. So let us still ask ourselves, was federal government subsidizing fuel at over 430 naira per litre? What has changed that our government should not have human conscience to come down? When I read the president's speech, I was on the road when he was giving the speech, so I didn't listen. So when I opened the full text, I saw where he said, I didn't come to speak economic jargons. It breathed a breath of hope that maybe some simplification of the process was coming. There was expectation in that speech, that broadcast, that at least our president would tell us that these are the framework for, in the next 6 or shorter or longer term, for a refinery to come into operation. Because when you say you are not coming to speak economic jargons, you know the main problem at stake. So, sir, hope does not exist. And then when you ask or tell me that Nigerians are resilient, I think we are subservient. We take anything that comes. And please imagine with me, these leaders, are they from other countries visiting to lead us and then they will depart? Or they're Nigerians? Because I cannot imagine that my children are hungry and I am outside drinking Glenfiddich when there is no drop of meal at home. And all I could tell them is that I will send them to go to the recreational center to go and do a young glover. I am not providing immediate solution to them, to their hunger. Say, don't worry, I'll take you on a long drive. Just be patient with me. That is where we are going to. We are going to Budu Cattle Ranch from Calabar. That is, we are hungry. So that's what Nigerians are telling the president. We are hungry. Life is difficult with us. Please, can you just come down and take a little care about us? And you're telling us that we are doing, we are crying, teething cry or something like that. So just cry a little, and you don't give me when our cries will stop. I don't know what to tell my children when the days we can no more buy fuel to run the generator. So I translate the president's word. Say, let's endure for a moment.
So you are the president of the house.
He has made me the president of my home.
And so apparently economic realities has we can now agree that economic realities have made Tinubu the president he is, and Tinubu being the president he is has changed you from the kind of father he used?
Yes, because we can't be responsible. It's by word of mouth.
Okay, so a few days to the inauguration of the current presidency, we saw the inauguration of the Dangote refinery. That was done in May, and August 2023 was picked as when Dangote refinery was supposed to commence operation. The heartbreaking twist here is that has been further shifted to 2024. Amanam Hillary. Which way Nigeria?
Okay, Ayara, I think the problem I seem to have with myself is that sometimes when I have skepticisms about certain things, I seem not to speak about it so that I'm not done to be a false prophet. But I want to pick up from what Anita had said. We do not have a thought process right as a country. That is, our leaders do not sit down to think properly, because what makes us what makes other countries or developed climes different from Africa or Nigeria as the case it is that the fact that they think, they sit down to plan, and they have timelines attached to those plans. That's what makes any country exceptional. And then they have mechanisms to monitor and ensure that the timelines are being kept to. They realize what they want per time. So for me, it is unthinkable that you are talking about subsidy removal when certain things, there are certain parameters and indices that should have been addressed before you remove subsidy. What is the main problem? What are we subsidizing for? That we have oil as a country. We export our oil to the foreign land to refine and sell back to us as a nation. And we've been doing this for years. Because when you refine, bring it back the refined products, we need to pay duties for the for the refined products. We need to pay for the cost of shipments. What stops us from having our refineries work? I've talked about the money spent for turnaround maintenance. That's one side. And then the fraud I want to talk about now is the Dangote refinery. I had said privately to myself that I do not believe that the Dangote refinery will work in 2023. I never had any timeline it was going to work. So when they came up to tell us we're commissioning the place will kickstart by the end of July, I said, okay, let's hope that this is the breaking point, and maybe this is the testimony that we're expecting as a country, because with the capacity they told us that the refinery would refine per day, it was almost going to meet local consumption. But the absurd thing is this, that 2 months before the commissioning of Dangote refineries, can the government of Nigeria explain why it gave Dangote the license to import fuel? Dangote is building a refinery that is acclaimed to be the biggest in Africa, right? And then at the same time, 2 months before the takeoff of the refinery, you are granting license to the same person who has, who in quote has finished building a refinery that is almost functional for the country. Why was the license generated? So it looks like the people and leadership think that this country or that Nigerians do not have heads to think. There's what we say in our local dialect. Looks like there's nobody in our midst who has head. But the truth is that we know this. So there are persons who are profiteering for the whole thing. There are people who are feeding on the hardship of citizens, and then this commissioning we are talking about in question was led and championed by the immediate past president. It means that the leadership came out to lie to the citizens, and without remorse, no apology to anybody, and nothing happens. So I said we are resilient. So Anita I said we are not resilient, we are subservient. Because people should be punished for that. How do you lie to your people and nothing happens to it? So it means that the whole thing, like I said, is very fraudulent, and we need to get back to the basics. But Anita, you were saying that you're talking about, let me give you my analysis, and I'll maintain this each time I'm asked about subsidy. If you want to remove subsidy, get our refineries, the 4 refineries that we have, We have 2 in Delta State, 1 in Kaduna, 1 in Port Harcourt. Get the 4 refineries to work, and it is not impossible. If it is not possible to have, a turnaround maintenance of the refineries for them to work, and let me even say that of Port Harcourt, they said that it will work by December.
Yeah.
So let's hope that it will not, it will not be shifted. So if it is difficult to maintain and revive, the old refineries, the money spent on the, on the turnaround maintenance of the old ones would have built 2 or 3 refineries as at the cost of forex at that time. I'm talking about over $30 billion. So that's one side. The other side is that if fuel was sold at 230 naira as at May 28th, May 29th, before the proclamation by Mr. President, a new conceived proclamation as
at the time, mind you, at the time when fuel was sold for 230, the official rate was still 165.
Yes, 165. So now, you said that's for the independent marketers were selling for 230 naira.
Yeah.
So assuming, without considering, like he has said, that fuel was sold for 230, there was never a point in history where NNPC told us that they were paying 310 naira as subsidy for the price or for a liter of petrol. Never any point they told us that. That's one side. The other indices I have always advised is that look at NNPC statistics and indices of fuel consumed daily by Nigerians. From 30 million liters per day is skyrocketed to 60.8 million liters per day. So it means that every single day NNPC claimed that it released 60.8 million liters of petrol into the Nigerian market every blessed day. And then let me tell you how fun it is. So it is possible that Nigerians from January to June will consume 60.8 million liters per day. It did not reduce, it did not increase, or nothing. The truth and reality is that there were allegations that when NNPC releases the quantity for today, if it's still in the market, they release the same quantity tomorrow, but what they release is not actually injected into the market. It is smuggled and sold to our neighboring countries. There's allegation in the media. So
after all, people don't buy fuel every day.
So after all, if you fill your if you fill your tank for today, it will take you at least no matter the distance you want to run, at least for a week and some days. Or let's say you really run
for 5 days.
At least 5 days. So how is it possible that every blessed day we're consuming the same quantity of petrol? There's some lies in this place, in this space, and we need to tell ourselves the truth. I think until we can get our processes right and say things the way they are, and without trying to sugarcoat it, because at this point we've passed a point where we can sugarcoat. The hardship is biting on everybody. It is biting on everybody, and I think we are getting to a point where we will say enough is enough.
It's
We're almost there.
Everybody. It's not everybody. The bourgeoisie class are not feeling it.
Okay.
They are not. Their children, their families are not feeling it. The bourgeoisie class, they are not. It takes you to make 50,000 in a day and buy fuel 25,000. What are you making for? So we're living through time. There is no planning. As we speak, in less than a month plus, school resumption.
And then the other matter you're talking about, I wanted to hit on is that I wish that the immediate past administration had conducted the census. Because as a country at this moment, you see, when they're talking about the palliatives issue, they say the poorest of the poor. What is the numbers? They say 60 million Nigerians. Then they now talk about, so first, we don't even have the numbers. We don't have our statistics. And no nation can plan properly without numbers. So if we had had the population census, for example, we should have been able to determine who belong, to the poorest of the poor and who are there, and perhaps their numbers. So we did not have that. Two, even he's talking about the bourgeoisie. So what's the percentage of the middle class, for example, and the bourgeoisie? None.
We don't have middle class. We don't have middle class. It's the bourgeoisie.
So the thing is that this country is not primed to work. The fundamental thing that makes a country work is that you get your statistics right, and it's with data you can plan and have measurable results. and follow up to ensure that the results actually, they have direct impact on the people. So we do not have a data, we do not have a proper planning, we do not have a thought process, so we are headed for doom. And so if anybody expects at this point that things will change, I seem not to. I want to be patriotic, but the reality is that in being patriotic, I should also, be bold enough to say I do not believe that things will change any moment. Mr. President was talking about in his address. He said, we will. That from the moment he removed subsidy on May 29 to now, nothing has really been done. So he's still talking about the intentions, not about things that they have rolled out, already to cushion the impact of the subsidy removal. So he's saying between now and March 2024, I bet you by March 2024, I think we can come back on this program.
Sorry, most surprising is the idea of having to buy buses.
Okay.
And the question I ask is, why don't you do the right thing and you want to provide another wrong solution? You are intending to get buses to run our roads, so that I begin to park my car and join the bus. At whose cost?
The cost of government.
Cost of government. So you are indirectly still profiteering on the so-called billions of dollars that you have made through the fuel subsidy removal.
So let's keep the subsidy.
So we are in a spiral cycle. Yes, we are not going nowhere. 2 steps forward, 2.2 steps backward. See, I am patriotic. Nigerians, as you hope beyond hopes that things will be better, I desire that things will be better. And unfortunately, it's just you were the one that brought the discussion at the 60 days, after 60 days of the government. I would have said, just because this discussion is aligning to our local parlance that say, can you go for it? And I say, don't work with them. I also would want to say, let me not preempt them before I will be told that I'm not patriotic. But let us begin to count the hope that we are hoping. If there's something to hold on to, may someone show me. I will firmly hold on to it, because I am tired of complaining over what is achievable, but we have failed ourselves.
Okay, let's depart a bit from what's happening at the moment. Let's look at our leadership recruitment processes. Enete Bassey, all through the campaigns and up to the elections that produced President Bola Tinubu, at what point did Nigerians sit down to probe the presidential candidates in the just concluded 2023 general elections? And we are the followers. Are Nigerians not even the reason the country has so terribly drifted? We don't probe leadership. We don't ask questions. We don't get people aspiring to leadership to answer to what the house, to whys, to what, and to where and when. We just go ahead, cast the ballots, sing around when the fellow we voted emerges, and now return to the trenches to complain. At what point? What did Tinubu promise Nigerians when he campaigned?
I'm healing the pre-campaign, the campaign, post-campaign, election and post-elections had so much injuries infliction. I am healing because I can recall that we have had this session here time after time, and I had appeared on other platforms calling to our consciousness, calling out to responsibility of what role we should play as citizens. That voice, or those voices of mine, are in the dungeon. They were not heard. Nothing changed. You know why? Every country deserves the leadership or the government they make. When we were transiting, we were rather inclined to our own person than that person's ability and competence. We joked a lot about a lot of things as at that time. Let me bring your mind back to it. The Bala Blue session Nobody is talking about it again. Even those who were the purveyors are also in this hardship. Those who will attack the critic are also in this hardship. So this was the picture I was pointing to the future. The insight I was telling us that it does not matter the platform anybody is contesting election. What matters most is that after elections, governance will resume. I call on the churches. I told them, I said, for whatever it is worth, do not be inclined to the fact that one person had run first to you. But let us be objective in the analysis, because we play a lot of roles in it. That time is gone, sir. You can recall those events where we attacked and call names. I'm sure in one of the programs you might have held, people called you and questioned why you allow your guests to air certain opinions. Those people are also buying fuel at 600. They are, and I'm happy that they are buying fuel at 600. So when you talk about recruitment process, unfortunately the umpire that was championing the cause, the INEC man told is down INEC, they brought this shame to us. They brought this shame to us. So we're in this together. Don't ask me about recruitment process, because there was no process. It was an unpicking session and it was all uncompleted. The only aspect of it is that is the doldrums that are beating in the court. I'm sure in the next 2-3 weeks, more of the packages will be delivered. And then we will be angry. I will not be angry for any resolution that will be given by the court, because as a lawyer and I practicing one, you ask inside how the court operates. The technicalities in the court cannot help us to refine our selection or recruitment process. And we have seen where the tribunals are. I once told someone, I said, if two of us have issue, civil issue, and maybe land transaction, yes, you can have justice. But in election petition, I can say it if I will have to be arrested hereafter. There is no justice in election petition tribunals.
Well, we've seen.
That's not. So because the technicality is so loud, that's part of the recruitment process.
Technicality.
The technicality is so loud. The entire process is crowded with technicalities. You cannot escape. So immediately the populace are done with, oh, this is what was voted, or this was what was announced. It's over, almost over. There's no hope.
Like someone will say, win the elections.
Yes, win the election at all costs.
Then we'll go to the court to defend it.
Yes. So nobody criticized the candidates. It was a party affair. And the more people the party want to itself or herself, the more possibility of emerging in the offices. I don't want to waste my energy talking about the internal democracies in our political party, because it doesn't exist. The rules, the party constitution is there, the electoral act was amended to at least engineer internal democracy in the process of recruitment, but they almost all fail. So we pass that stage. Where we are now, let us make do with what we have seen and beg them. We are now begging them, please help us. Instead of what would be that they should be the one to come to us, knowing that we are the possessors of the mandate. We clean our hands of the mandate. We abdicated our responsibility and our rights. The entire bundle of rights is with the leaders now, those who made themselves or those who said they were made by us. So we will continue. We are into another 4 years of this, and I will always come here to remind us the choices we made. The little peanuts we took and make do with it. That 3,000 that we collected, each and every one of us in our polling unit, cannot buy us 10 liters of fuel. That's the reality. That's the ugly situation, sir.
So you mean they've come for their pound of flesh?
It is worse this time. We were telling us that, the analysis we made and said, divide the 1,000 for 4 years. It was into Kobo. So now I would ask them, divide the 3,000 you collected into liters of fuel. You cannot buy fuel. Let us continue. One day we'll just wake up, other countries will be having daytime, Nigeria will have darkness.
We'll pray it doesn't get to that.
I don't want you to pray, please.
Okay.
Governance is a reality and it's a process and must be gotten right, otherwise
Sam,
we'll fall.
let me say what is funny about this whole thing. What is funny is that the percentage of what represents leadership in this country is just about 3 to 4%.
Do we have it up to that?
I think it is
3 to
4%. How do you calculate?
Let me not exaggerate.
It's not even up to 280 million people.
Up to one. Okay, let me say
Not up to 1%.
Up to 1% of the total population.
Okay.
But how do you imagine that 1% or less than 1% of the population is holding 280 million people hostage? I think we have to, as much as as much as we talk about the leadership, we cannot shy away from the kind of citizens that we have. He said that, for me, I believe that every leadership, every society deserves the kind of leadership it gets, because leadership is an offshoot of the society itself. It is the citizens who determine the kind of leadership that they want. You see, at the election period, I've always said this, and I will say time without number. Leadership recruitment, this process in this country, dead. Because we do not talk about who delivers, who can deliver, who can solve our problems, who can, give us timelines of what they can do. What we are after is that we are after sentiments. We are after, some cheer. We want to cheer those. And when they come for campaigns, let's refine even the process of our campaign process in this country. The refining, the campaign process that we have. What we have is whoever intends to be a leadership. Because leadership, for me, when we talk about recruitment, it is the people. The people, yeah. Who should employ, the leaders. And say, oh, we are giving you,
That's apparently why they come telling us their servant, our servant.
Okay, so they come in the guise of servanthood. So when they come, it is the appointees and sacrifice of people who patronize the system that speak to the intending leaders, not the people. I said that I want us to have, maybe in the coming days, maybe with the challenges that we have, if we're thinking right, we'll now go back to the drawing board to say, let's have a campaign process that is not from the purview of those who want to lead, but from the purview of those to be led. So it is not somebody coming to tell us we intend to do X, Y, Z. I've always also said that development should not be from the point of leadership. It should be from the point of citizenship. Because the citizens will know what is paramount and what is most pressing to them. You might think that what the people need is that they need a road. Meanwhile, what they need is that they need just market stalls to sell their wares. So it's a one-way traffic. But ideally it's supposed to be a symbiotic process of the leaders coming to tell us this is what we intend to do. And we tell them that, look, this is not what we need. This is what is most paramount to us at this time. So there is no talking process in anything. There is no dialogue. He was talking about consultations before major policies are taken. Was there any consultation with the Nigerian people? No. Post removal of subsidy, has any dialogue been initiated to talk to citizens and say, oh, this is the reasons why we need to? No. It is about somebody coming out to read a written speech,
very lengthy,
written for him by his aides. Probably does not even understand the implications of the speech he read, and he says that he's talking to people. That is why in civilized climes I like leaders to speak spontaneously to citizens, because that is where you can get to know the real thoughts that you can bear, not some prepared speech. When you have a prepared speech, what he comes to do is to deliver what has been given to him. And in most cases, we know, you and I know, that our leaders never get to implement what they read out in the speech.
Just with those things as comprehension.
How can you sit down and dole out 25 paragraphs of a speech at that age? I asked someone one question one other time during that prayer. I said, assuming you heard that a certain school is very prominent and you now take your child in there at the point of after registering the child, and you ask them, I need to see my child's class teacher, and they brought your retired headmaster, someone that was headmaster doing when you were in nursery school or primary school, and they told you that that's the one to teach your child. I'm not sure there's any parent, any sane parent, that will allow his word to be taught by a retired headmaster in this 21st or even 22nd century. So sir, please, I want you to bear your mind along with me. We have passed the stage of recruiting leadership. What we are facing now is that
The consequences of.
I am calling us to those who knows how to pray, go to church and pray, because God can actually change the heart of the leaders. The rules is high, so let us not say how they came till when the court will begin to give judgment in a few days. That will determine how they came, whether it will be consolidated or otherwise. But what we are now is let God change their mind, because we lack the justification to call them to change their minds. When they came to us, they came to do poetic renditions at the time they call campaigns. Recall how they will always bring artists, and we dance around with them, and nobody had any discussion. So we missed the track. When you don't prepare for continuous assessment records, continuous assessment, you must likely fail the exams. So when we're given opportunity to partake in the seminar paper delivery and test, we didn't. So we're having examination line to write and ensure that we score at least 45 or 50. So we are likely failing. So that's why I'm saying we should look for the terrestrial order. God should visit Nigeria and help us, because I'm not really going forward to begin to sound right to these leaders who are almost, their minds are better. Their minds are better. Let me say this. When immediately our leaders assume the office, here they know no leaders. Here our own followers. Those who are leading are like this. Their face is in front. Those who are following are behind. It has been difficult in this country to sway the minds of those who are leading us. I can testify. So this one that we're doing is to educate the public on what they should do. The public has also failed to listen. I'm sure the next time we come, we'll have prayer session. I will have to activate. Yes, I will have to activate my prayer consciousness. Let us begin to pray like the churches.
Why do we seem to use religion as a cover?
That's the only mantra
for the incompetence of both leaders and the citizens.
Let me ask you, sir. We have realized that we, the citizens, we fail. Yeah, we fail. I've analyzed it here. Opportunity was made for us to partake in seminar papering. We refused to do that. Test was given. We refused to take the test. Now the people are saying it's down for us. And you say that we shouldn't talk about religion. You need to pray and allow these people. It's too early to criticize them.
Maybe that's why we have more prayer houses now.
So looking at the twist in all of this, the economic heat, the inflation happening in Nigeria, how difficult it has become to get by. We've also had tales of coup and other civil insurrections around the south, around West Africa, around the West African region. And then yesterday I read an opinion on an online platform where someone where someone postulated that what happens around Nigeria, what is currently ongoing around the West African region, is a pointer to how the Arab Spring began. And just then I got scared that probably Nigeria has taken a decision with the removal of fuel subsidy. The Nigerian government has taken a decision that has a far-reaching effect on the rest of the region. As difficult as this could sound, as this has turned, Amana, as difficult as this reality is, what hopes are on ground to ensure that Nigeria preserves the democracy it is currently enjoying, when we look at the twists and situations around West African region and where they bore their roots from?
Okay, first I want to say very explicitly, I don't believe in coups. Yeah. I'm a Democrat. I believe that if we're practicing that democracy properly, we don't have some of the issues that we're talking about right now. But let me go back to also opinions I read and got to listen to certain interviews. The problem, as much as incidentally, our president is now is the chairperson of ECOWAS. And on Sunday they had an emergency meeting where they made a very, very firm stand on Niger, to say that if they enforce no-flight zone, certain economic measures and punishments and all of that. But the truth is that our leaders also need to think, I need to go back and think, certain things. That one, why you have coups in those countries is that most of the times that citizens complain that the leaders are aloof. There's no connection between the leaders and the citizens. And in the case of Niger, if you look at the far-reaching issues that are, the underlying matters, it revolves around the same issue in almost every country of West Africa, in almost every country of Africa. The issue of corruption, the issue of failure leadership, the issue of using the military. That same military that opposed President Bazoum, if you also read in recent times, there were times he used the military to repress citizens. When they came out to protest, you are using the military to kill your people. It shouldn't happen. But for me, there is no that is no justification to having a coup. Instead of having a coup, I rather prefer that we have what I call my democratic coup, because every election presents to you the opportunity to select those you see or deem fit to be in the at the sphere of leadership. In terms of, I think Nigeria is perhaps waking up to its regional obligations and trying to be the big brother. So I don't know how far-reaching that could be, but in terms of the implications of the coups around, the Sahara, especially the West African region, I think the opinion, it might not be entirely untrue, because we need to think far so that we can now know how to, think about the solutions, if at all we're thinking about the solutions. One, that as much as we oppose military takeovers, let's get back and address the real issues, the underlying matters. Is that the military has said that the president is not taking up actions and initiatives and all of that. In other cases, you've had issues where people who were meant to serve 5-year terms or maybe 2 terms maximum, they do 10 years, and after they are done with 10 years, they use every means available to seek for tenure elongation. These are the issues. Let me say that one that is very, 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 very funny. That of Cote d'Ivoire. Recall what happened between President Gbagbo and Alassane Ouattara. Ouattara came in when Gbagbo was trying to elongate his term. I think an election was held. Ouattara won the elections, and then he tried to turn the electoral process. And they came and said, "Oh, you can't do that." They ousted Gbagbo, and Ouattara came in. Look at what Ouattara has done recently. He's seeking for tenure elongation. Somebody who benefited from a democratic process, trying to undermine that same process. So these are the things that has led to, and when citizens came out to say, you can't do this, the military are out in the streets. If you protest, they kill you. If you protest, they arrest you. He's arresting opposition leaders. These are the things that is wrong with Africa. But I do not think we need to wait for each of this to happen before we can fine-tune a democratic process. Why is it that when it is time for leaders to do things that will benefit them, they talk about global best practices? When it is time to do things that should benefit the people, global best practices are not talked about. So if you do not want,
they talk about peculiarities.
I believe that we should domesticate certain policies. I seem to have that there are other matters that are that are bothering us as a country beyond the first thing that we need to look at. For example, the structural adjustment program that has plunged us to where we are. Foreign, the issue of the exchange rates that has plunged us to where we are. So there are very anti-people, very economic policies that do not have direction, do not have depth. So we need to look at those things and address them. So it is not untrue for us to think that we should get our acts right and begin to think about how to have a leadership that appeals to the people, and not feel that we can do anything and nothing will happen. Because like you said, for me, I believe anything was going to happen. Let's not take away the fact that the current leadership of the country is tilted to the West. And so you do not know how the northern feelers about the administration. And these countries that are witnessing military insurrections are around the north. You cannot take away the fact that there are implications, for example, when you had issues in Sudan. And it had security problems, post security challenges to northern Nigeria. So how about countries as close as Niger, as Chad? So we should be very, 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 very careful and very painstaking in our process. That let's not think that we can continually inflict pain and hardship on people, and then they will not react.
Okay, Nete Bassey, looking away from economic hardship, the hunger, the inflation, the unemployment, and all of that. When we look at this crisis that is taking its toll on the West African sub-region, are we not afraid that in the coming days we may begin to have a diffusion of the insecurity experienced in those climes in Nigeria? And if that happens with our current economic realities, what becomes the plight of both government and the citizenry?
Well, just as Hillary has, taken a deep analysis of the issues bordering on the coup and the taking over of government in the Sahel region, it is not impossible for the infiltration of the effects, the dangerous effect of what is happening in those localities to affect Nigeria. The reason is, we know the crops of our brethren in the north. 2, we know how delicate the security architecture in the north is. 3, we know how almost inefficient our intelligence gathering is because of the sabotage that is embedded in our military formation. It has been said time and time. Top military officials, expert security experts have come out to say that the failures of the Nigerian government to tackle the Boko Haram and other insurgencies is because of the infiltration of elements who are patriotic to these insurgents. So if at the moment Nigeria is having the tax as the chair of ECOWAS, and then ultimatum has been given to the Niger coup plotters that if you do not do this, we will take to armament. I want to join my voice and ask that diplomacy should rather be used than the use of armament, because recall or be informed that the juntas have asked that Russia give them support. Recall also that we are more inclined to United Nations, United States, and other UK European countries, and do not limit yourself to the ideals of what is going on at the global stage. How the India and the West are rather patriotic or inclining to supporting Russian war against Ukraine. So by the time it is looked at it, Nigeria is very juicy despite the challenges that we are having. If Russia says I will support Niger, and Nigeria, as weak as we are, let it be heard that because we are not coordinated, our strength is not strong. If we are coordinated, that's those days when my late uncle would tell us that immediately Kumok soldiers land anywhere, they make impact. I cannot say because of my little research that can still happen today. So instead of wanting to be that useless big brother that is inefficient, we want to show big brother we are not big brother. Our problem has limited us, has known us to even be we are in need of help. So let us not think of armament. Let those guys be persuaded to give a timeline within when democratic government can be installed in Nigeria. And then just as he has said, when you say you are not pro-coup, I cannot commit coup. I'm not a soldier. But you know that research has shown what has always pervaded coup. When you are insensitive to people's plight, when just a little cabal are stronger than the institutions, when there are sabotages in policy implementation, and the people keep looking at it. Recall that every soldier has a relative at home. They are not even well paid. We've seen our soldiers are running away from the front where they are supposed to be in charge. So and the overall is that we have a very big boundaries.
Porous.
Very porous. Our borders are very porous, both water and land. And just like you had noted, the Sahel region is by the north. There is a possibility of infiltration, and when it comes, it will not bring anybody no goodwill. So I will, in the state of realizing that it will not do that for us, let us not want to show the world that we are giants, because that we are sleeping giants. With all ramifications, we are sleeping giants. Economic, we are not good. Our education, while coming here, I was listening on program, I think Planet FM, analyzing the poor position of our educational system. So where are we even talking about as giants? It's only those who have escaped this snare that are making impact abroad. Are they our ambassadors? The answer is no. We didn't send them. I said not too long ago, in a country where you see advertorials about to train citizens to leave the country. I think I saw that on Kodipene Road. How we will be taught, come let us coach you out to Chapa. Our government is happy to allow and collect the tax and allow such billboard to be there, because it has failed us and realizes that there's a need for these people to run away before we kill them.
Okay, so let's assume that the slow pace could be attributed to the fact that leadership isn't a lone turf. Leadership is a space where other people come to play on the agenda of government. People need to come together, support government to achieve whatever plan it has. So in Nigeria, in the last 2 months, it's more like a solo affair, because there is yet to be a constituted Federal Executive Council. We don't have ministers to help the president interpret his visions, plans, and policies. Then at the moment, the National Assembly is currently screening 28 ministerial nominees of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Looking at the choices the president has made so far, does it look like these ministers hold in any form the aces to solving Nigeria's problems when they come on stream? Following through the ministerial screening at the National Assembly, how well are those people drilled? How thorough has the process been to ensure that at the end, what Nigerians would be having as ministers in the Federal Executive Council really truly represents our collective aspirations and yearnings?
I am not going to be pessimistic about it. I rather express my normal level of optimism, but I still have reservations, which I'm going to stay here right now. One, there seem to be a recycling of leaders by the current administration. It looks like the 1999 set are finally making it back to the corridors of power. I'll start from the secretary to the government of the federation. Was governor of Benue State 2 terms, later went to the Senate, later became minister, now is the secretary to the government of the federation. You now have that out of the nominees, the ministerial nominees, you have ex-governors, some ex-ministers who later became governors and perhaps forgot something in Aso Rock. And so, you see, our leaders do not have any sense of shame. Because if you're an honorable man and you see something that should bring shame to you, you have a sense of moral piety, and then you say, no, I want to recuse myself from this process. So there seemed to be a deliberate attempt to recycle the old brains, the people who led us to the doldrums, to where we are. And so how do you expect changes? How do you expect the renewed hope agenda to be achieved? What we rather have, we just have a little injection of some fresh people, some fresh names, but they're not few. So they're not many, they're very few. So what you have is that when you have the dominant nominees who are of the old stock, It's like you're trying to put, fresh wine in an old bottle. What change do you expect? It will still have the same taste. It was sour, it will be sour. It was sweet, it will be sweet. In this case, it has been sour since 1999. There is a decline, a deliberate, gradual decline of leadership from 1999 to date. Is that as the day passes by, the worse it gets. So the nominees for me do not. If I let me say my reservations when I said when the list was announced. If these names that are announced were the people to be nominated as ministers, why do we have to wait for 60 days or almost 60 days for the names to be nominated, for the names to be announced? Because there's really no new person there, except I just talking about the few names that are new. The others are the old stock. I listened to a sister TV station yesterday evening, and one comment my brother Daniel Bauer said, and I'm going to express it here, is the fact that we were expecting to see, some serious minded persons, the best brains, being brought on board to think about the solutions and help the president interpret his vision, because it is the ministers who interpret the vision of Mr. President. So when you have people, coming from the whole stock, it's going to be business as usual, the usual politics. Because I seem to think that he is patronizing or perhaps rewarding those who played a critical role in his campaign and ultimate electoral process. So not really about electing or nominating the right people who can tackle our problems. For example, I would like to say this. You see, how do you have a CBN acting governor of the CBN, the Mr. President is talking about economic recovery? How do you have an acting CBN governor who is not a fiscal expert, not even a banker, he's an engineer by profession? Because what you have is it is a CBN that drives the monetary policies of the country. So we don't even need a banker at this point. We need an economist to be a CBN governor. And you're bringing back, you are giving us an acting governor who is an engineer by profession. What do you expect? So it is about the fact that while the rest of the world are thinking in colors, we seem to still think in black and white. And while people are talking about progress they're making, they're measuring their growth.
Well, black and white.
How can countries
vintage?
Countries are talking about Ministry of Joy and Happiness. Countries are talking about how to measure how happy citizens are. We're talking about how to survive. Basic needs to survive. You go to school, you have the skill sets, but there are no jobs for you to to employ yourself. You want to do business, the economy is framed in a manner that it frustrates you. You end up at the end of the day, the little money you put in, you lose your money completely and go back to the drawing board and go back home.
Okay, madam, let's now still around that conversation. Let's look at sometime in the early 2015 or thereabouts, we had a certain man in Imo State who was appointed commissioner, who was nominated commissioner for finance by the then governor, Emeka Ihedioha, who was ousted by the Supreme Court. Then that man came up to decline his nomination. They say he was already way too old for that job. He's been finance commissioner in 2 past administrations, that he feels this was the time, then was the time for younger people to take responsibility, to take charge. After all, they've always ensured they mentored people while they were going up the ladder. Are you not surprised that in Nigeria, 8 years after Nigerians had to wait for all of 6 months for President Buhari to appoint his ministers, and he came up with the likes of Audu Ogbe and Ogbonnaya.
We're talking about pencil as Minister of Science and Technology.
Are you not worried that 8 years after that, we're having a return of people who have been all their lives in government, when we had the profile of immediate past governor of Rivers State read on the floor of the Senate, it was that he was local government chairman in 1999. He stayed for 2 terms, moved on to be chief of staff, moved on to be minister of state, was supervising minister, came back to be governor. So if you stayed in government for all of over 20 years, are you not worried that the Senate is not asking these people what has been their contributions to national development?
What were you expecting the Senate to ask? When I think our brother Mike Asupo, gave a very vivid illustration of what is happening, between the executive and the legislature. He said that the Senate is, I think he said, whether bastically yoked with the executive. Mr. President has an insignia cap. The Senate leadership, I'm talking about our very own brother, also has the same cap on it. So they seem to be yoked. But when you have the executive have a hand in nominating the leadership of the legislature,